Hi, and welcome to Prep Terminal's video guide to Predictive Index Behavioral Assessment Myths. In this video, we'll be walking through the main areas in your test which are designed to trip you up and catch you unprepared. On the surface, personality tests can appear to be simple, and many test takers make the mistake of not taking them seriously. Most applicants believe that they have the personality traits required to pass these tests without a second thought, and don't consider how the test makers aim to catch out their undesirable traits. You see, test setters lay out a number of traps. In order to lead test takers into a false sense of security, a number of myths are propagated to individuals who are about to take the test. We'll be covering these key personality assessment myths and how to avoid falling prey to them. Here are the personality test myths we're going to cover in this video. There is no such thing as a wrong answer. Be yourself. Admit your shortcomings. Give the first answer that comes to mind. First off, let's cover myth number 1. There is no such thing as a wrong answer. It's highly likely that you've heard this lie told a dozen times when it comes to personality screening. The rationale behind this myth comes from the notion that there's no right or wrong personality type in any binary sense. Obviously, when it comes to employment, this is not remotely true. Since different job types require different personalities and temperaments, it follows that personality screening is used as a tool to determine whether or not you are a fit for the job. Employers are actively seeking certain traits, and by understanding the intuition behind the questions you're being asked, you can begin to effectively showcase the desired traits in how you answer your test. The key message to take from this is that you should view these questions in terms of the right and wrong answer. If you pick your response without considering this fact, then it is highly likely that your prospective employer's assessment of you will be negatively impacted. Let's move on to the next myth. Be yourself. A widely accepted idea in personality profiling is that you should try your best to give a transparent and true image of yourself. The general idea here is that this facilitates an entirely authentic projection of oneself to prospective employers, who then make hiring decisions based on this information. However, we should consider the implications of this concept. This approach to taking a test often provides a less accurate image of your professional capabilities. This is because a self-answered personality test only focuses on your self-perception, rather than any objective measure of how your true traits pertain to the workplace. In this sense, it is vital that instead of focusing on your self-perception, you take the time to consider exactly which traits your prospective employer is looking for, and how you are able to tailor your behavior and traits to that outcome. In this regard, you should answer questions when considering your ideal self in the lens of the job position, rather than your regular view of yourself. We behave differently in the workplace because we understand the importance of certain traits. Following this logic, it only stands to reason that we should also ensure that our answers on a personality test project the version of ourselves which is ideal for the given job position. We'll be covering how to do this in more depth in this course's personality modules. Now, let's look at the next trap. Being told to admit your shortcomings. Assessors will tell you to admit your shortcomings in personality tests as a way to get a free insight of your weaknesses. This is quite literally asking you to explain why you shouldn't be hired. Obviously, you should avoid giving prospective employers any reason whatsoever not to hire you. When it comes to personality tests, you should be putting your best foot forward in every way and giving the best possible image of yourself, as you're not going into a new job position with the intent to fail. Why should you let prospective employers see any weakness? To this end, it is absolutely essential that you disregard the notion that you should openly admit to any shortcomings, regardless of their nature. The personality assessment is an opportunity to show why you should be hired, not to give employers reason to doubt you. Unfortunately, personality test makers are aware that individuals will avoid broadcasting weaknesses, and place loaded questions intended to catch you out in the tests without you even realizing you're admitting to a weakness. We cover how to identify these traps and correctly answer them in our full course. Finally, let's look at the final and possibly most dangerous myth in personality testing, giving the first answer that comes to mind. If personality test makers could choose how all test takers handle their tests, everybody would give the first knee-jerk reaction to every single question without second thought. And for most test takers, this is exactly what happens. 90% of test takers won't stop to consider the nuance in the questions they are being asked, and will inevitably suffer in their results for failing to fully consider the implications of the answer they are giving. It's important to remember that, unlike cognitive ability tests, this test doesn't come with time constraints. You have all the time in the world to think through your response and make the right decision. This is your opportunity to vastly outperform your peers. By understanding the need to stop and consider the question you are being asked, you already have an advantage over 90% of the competition. A personality test is intended to take an accurate measure of how a person would behave in the workplace. Consider this hypothetical situation. If a colleague were to offend you in the workplace, would it be wiser for you to do the first thing that comes to mind and retaliate in a manner which could get you in trouble, or to take a moment to consider how you should react and take a less combative approach? Clearly the latter option is better. The notion that you should give the first answer that comes to mind follows a logic which is entirely at odds with real workplace behavior. This is why you must make an effort to take a moment to consider questions and answer in a manner which best represents your professional behavior rather than the first answer that comes to mind. If you can properly represent your ability to consider a situation thoughtfully instead of charging in recklessly, your results will drastically improve. This concept is expanded upon in the full course, to help you understand how to properly assess questions and what they are really trying to find out about you. Now we've covered the main myths related to personality tests, let's review the key points. First, there are absolutely right and wrong answers. Employers are trying to catch you out by providing a false sense of security in this exam. Second, by telling you to be yourself, employers are expecting you to project your everyday self. This is not the correct approach, as your workplace personality will inevitably be different. You must make efforts to show your personality in a professional setting, and all of the strengths associated with it. Third, a personality test is no place to admit shortcomings. Questions are rigid and binary, with no room for interpretation. The only appropriate place to admit shortcomings in any way is in an interview, and that should only be used as a means to put forth a weakness which suggests a greater underlying strength causing it. We'll cover this concept further in the written guides. Finally, whatever you do, don't immediately give the first answer that comes to mind. You need to take a measured consideration of the question being asked and what the correct response is, just as you would in the workplace. Don't let these tests pressure you into answering before you think. By following these 4 guidelines, you are already on the right track to flourish in your personality test. Our full preparation course has been designed to take you through the ins and outs of exactly how questions will be asked and how you should approach them. We cover the hidden logic behind personality testing so that you can access your potential and show employers exactly why you're the right choice by bypassing the pitfalls laid for you by the creators of the test. Thanks for choosing to study with Prep Terminal. We'll see you in the course.